Hi, and welcome to Reddit Confessions. This one's not easy to tell. Not because I'm embarrassed, though I probably should be, but because I still can't figure out when exactly my marriage became a comedy sketch with me as the punchline. It wasn't one big moment. No dramatic betrayal with slammed doors and secret hotel keys. It was slower, meaner. It was death by 1,000 smirks. Here's how it started. I walked into the living room one night, and Daphne, my wife, was sitting on the couch with her friends. I wasn't eavesdropping. I was holding a bowl of popcorn I'd just made for them. I was being thoughtful. What I heard made my stomach turn. Oh God, you should have seen him try to hang the curtain rod. He measured it 6 times and still drilled into the drywall like he was blindfolded. Laughter. And the way he reads IKEA instructions out loud, like a grandpa decoding Morse code. I swear, I record it sometimes. More laughter. I stood there for a moment, invisible in my own house, holding popcorn like an idiot. My wife saw me, didn't flinch, didn't stop. She winked. That was her way of saying, it's just a joke. Don't make it weird. But here's the thing. It was weird. It had been for a long time. I just hadn't let myself admit it. It was in the way she never used my name anymore. Only sarcastic nicknames. Professor Clyde, Captain Overthink, Mr. Sensitive. It was in how she'd mock the way I said trousers instead of pants. Like my vocabulary was a character flaw. Once, during a dinner party, she told our guests that I once cried at a movie trailer. A trailer. She imitated my face, even the voice crack. They were in stitches. I smiled. I don't know why. I used to believe marriage was about showing the worst parts of yourself and still being loved. Now I know, being mocked for them is not the same thing. The real gut punch. She never laughed with me anymore. Only at me. Eventually, I stopped reacting. No more forced chuckles. No more sheepish smiles. No more pretending her jokes were harmless. I started going silent instead. She noticed. Oh, come on, Clyde. You're not still mad about the toast joke, are you? I wasn't mad. I was numb. I stopped asking how her day went. Stopped explaining mine. I ate dinners in silence. Started walking at night, just to feel air that didn't carry her sighs or judgment. And the strangest thing happened. She panicked. Her laughter turned nervous. Her jokes became hesitant. She'd poke me with her words and wait, but I gave her nothing. No reaction is louder than silence. This is when the cracks started to show. And trust me, what came next was nothing like a joke. She started staying up later than usual. At first, I thought she was just watching her shows in the bedroom after I went to sleep on the couch. But then, a few nights in a row, I noticed the faint blue glow of her phone screen long past midnight. When I walked into the kitchen to get water, she'd suddenly put her phone face down like a teenager hiding texts from their parents. I didn't ask. I didn't want to hear more excuses. I just watched. Quietly. That's when the shift really began. She began testing me, like a child pushing boundaries. One morning, she asked, "Are you even attracted to me anymore?" In this half-mocking tone, like it was rhetorical. I stared at her and just said, "Do you really want me to answer that?" She looked stunned. Not because I said it, but because I didn't soften it with a laugh or an apology. The days turned into this bizarre emotional chess game. She would put on extra makeup just to go to the grocery store, wearing perfume she hadn't used in years. She'd leave her phone face up now, but the screen was always dark, like she'd deleted everything before coming home. Or maybe she just wanted me to think that. One Saturday, she said she was meeting her friend Kaylee for brunch. That part made sense. The part that didn't? She got dressed like she was headed to the Met Gala. Hair done, eyeliner sharp enough to cut glass, heels I hadn't seen since our honeymoon. Kaylee's boyfriend's gonna be there, she said offhandedly. Figured I'd look decent. I didn't respond. I just nodded and watched the door close behind her. 3 hours later, Kaylee posted a photo on her Instagram story. A stack of waffles and a mimosa. Just her hand. One mimosa. No group photo. No Daphne. I watched that loop on repeat like it held the answers to the universe. She came home smelling like spearmint gum and someone else's cologne. That night, I lay in bed while she scrolled through her phone beside me. She laughed at something quietly. I asked, "What's funny?" without turning toward her. "Oh, just something Kaylee said earlier." Was it during brunch or after? The silence that followed could have drowned a room full of noise. She got up, went to the bathroom, and shut the door. Not slammed, just shut. The next morning, she made pancakes. She hasn't made pancakes in 4 years. They were burnt, uneven, and she didn't even ask if I wanted any. She just placed the plate in front of me and walked away. I stared at those pancakes like they were some cryptic message I was supposed to decode. Guilt? Peace offering? Manipulation? That week, I decided to test something. I created a fake account on a dating app. Not to cheat, just to look. I didn't even use my photo, just a generic face from the internet. No bio, just a name. Mark. On the second day, I saw her. Not just someone who looked like her. Her. Full-on profile, recent photo, under a fake name, Leah. But there she was, in the dress I'd complimented her on 2 weeks ago. The bio said, looking for someone who actually listens. I didn't swipe. I didn't report her. I just sat back and let the weight of it all settle into my spine like cold cement. She was out there, publicly hunting for the very things I used to give her, before she turned me into her comedy sketch. And now that I'd stopped playing the clown, she wanted a new audience. But here's the thing. I had a plan. One she wouldn't see coming. She thought I was still the same guy who laughed when she mocked me, who flinched when she rolled her eyes, who begged for her affection like a man starving at the gates of a feast. But I had changed. Quietly. Strategically. And she had no idea. If you think this is the climax, oh no. What comes next will make everything so far feel like the warm-up act. The day I decided to stop playing her fool was the day she started unraveling, piece by piece, though I don't think she realized it yet. Daphne always saw me as safe, predictable, the type of man who wouldn't make waves even while drowning. But I'd stopped drowning. I was learning how to float, quietly, in the deep end, where she never bothered to look. That weekend, I told her I was going to visit my brother, Curtis, in the next town over. Thing is, I don't have a brother named Curtis. I just needed to see what she'd do when she thought I wasn't watching. Her reaction was odd. Oh, she said. Yeah, sure. Tell him I said hi. That was it. No questions. No curiosity. Not even fake interest. Just a dismissive nod like she was mentally rearranging her plans the second I closed the door. I parked my car 2 blocks away, circled back through the alley behind our building, and waited. An hour later, a rideshare car pulled up. She came out wearing that emerald green blouse, the one she used to reserve for anniversaries, and heels too sharp for just running errands. She didn't look back once. I took a photo from the shadows. Not for revenge. For clarity. For proof I wasn't losing my mind. But I didn't follow her. That wasn't the point. I needed to see what she'd do when no one was watching, not to catch her red-handed, but to see the depth of her indifference. Back home, I spent the evening putting together something I called the Book of Echoes. I took every little moment, the subtle insults, the backhanded compliments, the lies, the laughs at my expense, and I wrote them down. Not to share, not to post, just to remember. Because when you live in gaslight long enough, you start to question if the flame ever existed. The next week, she became noticeably more performative. She started wearing lipstick in the house. She laughed louder at my dry jokes, even the ones I mumbled under my breath. She even asked if I wanted to go out to dinner. That was new. Or at least, it used to be. I said yes. We went to a small Italian place near the river, the kind of place where the wine is too expensive and the napkins are cloth. She complimented the waiter's accent 3 times, adjusted her dress strap with a little too much flair, and barely touched her meal. I watched her closely, not with anger, just curiosity. Something on your mind? She asked, tilting her head. Just thinking how funny you are, I said. She smiled. That's new. No, I replied. I've just stopped laughing when it's about me. The smile froze. Just for a second, like she didn't know what script to follow next. Then she leaned in and said, Are you going through something, Clyde? I laughed. Genuinely. Yeah, I said. You. She didn't speak after that. Not in the car. Not at home. Not until the next morning when she brought me coffee and sat down across from me like we were strangers meeting to discuss a truce. I feel like you're pulling away, she said. Her voice was softer, almost foreign. Have I done something? That question nearly made me choke. I wanted to say, you built a stage out of my insecurities and sold tickets to every brunch friend you had. But instead, I said, I think you know. She opened her mouth, but closed it again. Then she nodded and said something I didn't expect. I haven't been kind to you. And just like that, the performance cracked. For a second, I thought I saw the real Daphne. The version from the bookstore years ago. The one who asked me if Bukowski was overrated and laughed with wonder, not cruelty. But it was just a flicker. A momentary break in the storm clouds. Because 3 nights later, her phone lit up at 2:14 a.m. I saw it reflected in the hallway mirror. A name popped up I didn't recognize. I memorized it. Looked it up later. A corporate finance guy. Married. 2 kids. Lives across town. And she wasn't just talking to him. She was sending him photos. Nothing explicit, but intimate in the way only a partner should see. I didn't confront her. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel surprised. I just smiled. Because now the plan was in motion. You see, you can only laugh at a man so long before he rewrites the script. And she had no idea that her final act had already begun. The next morning, I made pancakes. It probably doesn't sound like a big deal, but it was. Daphne always made breakfast. Or at least, she did when we still pretended to be normal. But that morning, I was already in the kitchen when she stumbled out of bed, wearing one of my old college t-shirts like some kind of irony. The coffee was brewed. The table was set. 2 plates, 2 forks, warm syrup. She looked thrown off. What's the occasion?" she asked, squinting at me like I was suspicious. "Just thought you might want something sweet for a change," I said without flinching. She sat down slowly, trying to gauge the mood. Her eyes moved across my face, searching for signs of sarcasm or bitterness, but I gave her nothing. Just a calm smile, like a man who'd spent the night sleeping soundly, not a man who had spent 2 hours screenshotting messages between his wife and a married father of 2. I played the part flawlessly, because by now, I wasn't reacting, I was directing. That day, I went out and bought a new phone. I didn't cancel my old one. I just left it on the kitchen counter while I went about my day with the new one in my pocket. I wanted her to feel safe. I wanted her to keep using the same tactics, saying the same lies, because predictability makes exposing the truth easier. Over the next 2 weeks, I gathered everything. Photos, timestamps, voice notes, even a receipt from the hotel bar she claimed she'd never stepped foot in. All of it, lined up neatly in a folder I titled, Monday. Why Monday? Because that was the day her world was going to start coming apart. But before that, I wanted her to see me change. Not in rage, not in heartbreak, but in confidence. I started leaving the house more, wearing clothes she hadn't seen in years, even getting a new haircut. Nothing dramatic, just different enough to make her paranoid. I met with an old friend, Maya, for coffee one afternoon. Maya had been a colleague from my teaching days, someone Daphne had always rolled her eyes about. When I came back from that coffee, Daphne was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables she didn't even plan to cook. "How's Maya?" she asked, not looking at me. "She's doing well," I replied casually. "Said to tell you hi." She flinched, just a little. That night, she sat on the edge of the bed and asked, "Is there something going on?" "With what?" I said, my voice flat. "With us." I stared at the ceiling for a moment before replying. "Finally noticed?" Her breath caught in her throat, but she didn't speak. She just lay down beside me, stiff as stone, like proximity would erase what she knew was coming. But what she didn't know was that the truth was already spreading. I'd sent the evidence to a lawyer, just in case. I also sent it to someone else. His wife. I debated that move for a long time. It felt wrong. But then I remembered every dinner party Daphne had spent mocking me, every lie, every secret giggle behind her phone at night. And I realized she wasn't going to stop. Not unless someone stopped her. The woman's name was Rachel. She replied within an hour. I knew something felt off. "Thank you. Please don't tell her you told me. I need time." I respected that. She deserved the courtesy Daphne never gave me. Now came Monday. I took the day off work. Daphne was already dressed for her yoga class, wearing those black leggings and the same hoodie she always wore when she wasn't actually going to yoga at all. Her phone was clutched a little too tightly. Before she walked out, I said, "Hey." She turned, half annoyed. "There's a folder on your laptop. It's called Monday. You might want to look at it before you go lie to me again." Her face twisted. "What are you talking about?" I didn't answer. I just pointed toward her desk. She opened the folder. Silence. Silence. Then a sharp inhale. Her fingers paused over the trackpad. "You went through my phone?" she whispered, the words trembling, not with shame, but with fury. "I didn't have to. You handed me everything the second you stopped respecting me." "I can explain." "No, you can't. And honestly, I don't want you to. Because you've been explaining everything for years with a smirk and a laugh track. But the show's over, Daphne." She stepped back like I'd struck her. But I didn't move. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. And that, I think, scared her more than anything I could have shouted. But what she didn't know was that this wasn't even the final act. I hadn't just prepared my exit. I had prepared her silence. And the most ironic part? She wouldn't see it coming, because she never believed I was capable of anything more than folding socks and burning toast. She didn't say a word for the rest of that day. Not while she closed the laptop. Not when I left the room. Not even when she heard the front door click behind me as I stepped out for air. Her silence wasn't remorse. It was strategy, calculating, unraveling, trying to understand how someone like me had pulled the rug out from under her without shouting or slamming anything. I stayed out for hours, wandering the neighborhood like a ghost. My phone buzzed once. It was a text from Rachel. He knows I saw everything. He's denying it, but it's over. Thank you for being brave. Brave. That word tasted foreign. I'd never thought of myself that way. Daphne always described me as dependable, safe, tame. But now I'd done something she never anticipated. I'd stopped being predictable. When I finally walked back into the house, she was in the kitchen, arms crossed, red-eyed but dry-faced. A single suitcase stood near the door, half-zipped. She turned to me and said, with almost theatrical calmness, "You invaded my privacy. That's what this is really about." I nearly laughed. That was her angle? After everything? "Daphne," I said, setting my keys down slowly. "Do you realize you've spent years turning my life into a roast session for your friends? You turned your husband into a joke, and now you're upset because the punchline was finally yours." She didn't answer, just stared, lips slightly parted like she was searching for a response in her usual script. But there wasn't one, because for the first time, I was no longer playing my assigned role. "I want the house," she blurted. "If we're doing this, I want the house." It was so sudden, so clumsy, I blinked. Doing what? The separation. Divorce. Whatever this is. I leaned on the counter, the faint hum of the refrigerator suddenly loud in the silence between us. I pulled a thick manila envelope from my coat pocket and slid it across the marble surface toward her. She eyed it warily. "What's that?" "Terms," I said. "Prepared by a lawyer 3 weeks ago. You can keep your car, and I won't contest your bank accounts. But the house stays with me. You don't get to humiliate me under this roof and then try to inherit it like a prize." Her hand shook as she picked it up, flipping through the pages like they might explode. "You were planning this?" she whispered. "Not until you gave me a reason." Her voice trembled. "You're not this cold, Clyde." "No," I said. "I used to be warm. You watched it die. You just didn't notice because you were too busy laughing." That night, she didn't sleep in the bedroom. I heard her shifting on the couch, the sound of fabric creasing under her restless limbs. I didn't sleep either, but not because I was heartbroken. I felt focused, alive in a way I hadn't felt in years. The next morning, she was gone. The suitcase was missing. Her toothbrush was gone. The mirror above the dresser no longer had her fingerprints on it. It was clean, eerily so. She left a note. Of course she did. Because for Daphne, even an exit had to be dramatic. It read, "I hope you find someone who appreciates your weird little quirks." I just couldn't keep pretending I did. No apology. No accountability. Just a final jab, like the whole thing had been an inconvenience. I folded the note and dropped it in the trash. I spent that week in silence. Not mourning her, but detoxing. It's strange how loud a house can feel when it's finally free of mockery. I started playing my guitar again. I called my sister and talked for an hour without being interrupted. I even rewatched the documentary Daphne used to roll her eyes at. And for the first time, I enjoyed it without needing anyone else's approval. Then the unexpected happened. One of her friends, Emma, reached out. She asked if I'd be open to meeting for coffee. Said she needed to clear her conscience. I agreed. We met at a small cafe near the library. She looked uncomfortable, fidgeting with the hem of her sleeve. "I should have said something earlier," she began, eyes down. "We all saw how she treated you. We laughed because she made it so easy. But it wasn't funny. It was cruel." I said nothing, just listened. "She cheated on you with more than just that guy. There were others." She bragged about it. Said you were too blind or too weak to ever find out. I felt a familiar nausea rise in my chest, but it wasn't heartbreak. It was confirmation. The final puzzle piece I hadn't asked for, but now had. Emma looked up. "I know it's not my place, but I hope you never take her back, even if she tries." I thanked her and walked away. Because deep down, I knew something was coming. Daphne never let go of control without a fight. And she wasn't finished. She would be back. But when she returned, she would find nothing like the man she thought she'd left behind. It took her 17 days. 17 days of silence. No texts, no calls, no emails, not even a passive-aggressive reaction to one of my Instagram stories. And then, like clockwork, she cracked. It started with a knock, not the kind that demands entry, but the kind that sounds like an apology. I opened the door and found her standing there in a beige coat, the one she always wore when she wanted to look composed. But she didn't. Her mascara was slightly smudged, and her smile was brittle, like glass stretched too thin. "I forgot my navy sweater," she said. "The one my aunt gave me." That's how she opened. No hello. No, "How are you?" No acknowledgement of the fact that she blew up our marriage and vanished with a suitcase and a dagger disguised as a note. I didn't move. "It's in the closet. Second shelf. You can take it." She stepped in, slower than necessary, her eyes darting around the space like it had changed. And it had. I'd rearranged the furniture, repainted the bedroom walls, donated everything that carried her scent. The place looked sharper now, cleaner, like the ghost of who we were had been scrubbed out. She walked past me without saying a word and disappeared down the hall. I stayed in the kitchen, sipping coffee, not even pretending to care what she was thinking. The illusion of control was gone, and she felt it. She took longer than needed, probably expecting me to initiate something, to fold, to speak, to beg. But I didn't. When she returned, she had the sweater folded over one arm and hesitation hanging in her eyes. "You've changed things," she said quietly. "Had to," I replied. "Too much of you in the air." That landed like a slap. She blinked, then placed the sweater on the table like a peace offering. "I've been doing a lot of thinking." I nodded. "That sounds exhausting." "Clyde," she said, voice cracking just slightly, "I know you hate me right now. And maybe I deserve that. But I want to be honest with you." I leaned back, arms crossed. "Now? You're choosing honesty now?" She sighed and sat across from me. "You weren't perfect. You know that. You were distant. You always held things in. I never knew what you really felt unless you were cracking some awkward joke." I let her speak. I wanted to see how far she'd go before circling back to the real reason she was here. I felt like I was married to a man who didn't want to be seen. And when someone came along who did see me, "Who wanted to sleep with you?" I corrected calmly. She flinched. I got caught up. "I'm not proud of it. But I didn't come here to fight." "No," I said, setting my cup down. "You came here because the person who made you feel important now has his own problems. Maybe his wife kicked him out. Maybe his kids won't look at him. Maybe you realize side stories never become main plots." Silence. She looked down, then back up. "I miss the version of us that laughed together." "There was no version of us," I said slowly, "where you weren't using me as a punchline." And then she broke. Not in some dramatic sobbing way, but with a quiet unraveling. Her mouth trembled. She looked away and said, "I don't know how to fix this." "You don't," I said, "because it's not broken. It's over." There it was. The final nail. Her eyes glistened, but she didn't cry. She stood up, sweater still folded. "If you change your mind." "I won't." She walked to the door, stopped once, looked back like she wanted me to stop her. But I didn't. I let the silence answer for me. When the door shut behind her, I exhaled. Not relief, not pain, just clarity. That evening, I sat on the porch, watching the streetlights flicker on. A notification buzzed on my phone. An old student of mine had published his first book. I smiled, messaged him a congratulations, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was disappearing. But that wasn't the end of Daphne's chapter. Because 3 days later, I got a call that changed everything. From her mother. And what she told me. It shattered every illusion I still had about who Daphne really was. And it made me realize that the jokes had only scratched the surface. The call came on a Thursday afternoon, just as I was finishing up an online lesson with one of my tutoring students. I saw the name pop up on the screen, Margaret Keller, and for a moment, I almost didn't answer. Daphne's mother and I had never been particularly close. She was always polite, always well-dressed, always slightly condescending. She treated me like the man her daughter had settled for, not the one she should have married. She never said it outright, of course, but I read it in the way she adjusted her pearls every time I spoke. Still, something about the timing made my fingers move before my brain caught up. "Hello, Clyde," she said, her voice shaky. I wasn't sure if I should call, but I think you deserve to know." I leaned forward. "Know what?" There was a pause, long enough that I thought maybe she'd hung up. But then she cleared her throat. Daphne's in trouble. My stomach didn't drop. It stayed right where it was. But something in my spine stiffened. She's been staying with me, Margaret continued, her words careful. After she left your place, she didn't tell me everything at first. Just said things got complicated. But last night, she had too much wine, and, Clyde, she confessed things I didn't want to believe. Things you probably don't even know. I stayed quiet. She kept talking. She's been seeing someone for almost a year. Not just one man. There were others before him. But this man, he's married. And his wife found out. Apparently, he's lost custody of his children, his job's in jeopardy, and Daphne, she's spiraling. She thought he'd leave everything behind for her, but instead, he cut her off completely. She's been begging to see him again, showing up at his office, calling his wife from burner numbers. I felt my jaw tense. Not from anger, from realization. She told me you found out, Margaret said quietly, and that you stayed calm. Clyde, she doesn't understand why. She's unraveling because she can't make sense of the fact that you didn't explode. She's convinced you're planning something. I'm not, I said softly. Not anymore. I already did everything I needed to. I believe you. But listen, there's something else. That's when her voice changed. She said something last night that chilled me, Clyde. She said, if I can't be the one laughing, I'll make sure no one else is either. Silence followed. I didn't say a word. But my heart, steady for weeks, started to pound again. That sentence, it wasn't just bitterness. It was venom. A warning wrapped in desperation. I'm telling you this, Margaret added, because I think you should be careful. She's not well. And when people like Daphne feel cornered, they don't collapse, they claw. I thanked her and hung up. For the next few hours, I just sat there. Not moving. Just thinking. I wasn't scared of Daphne, but I was no longer underestimating her either. Because Margaret was right. Daphne didn't know how to let things end. She only knew how to win. And when she couldn't win, she'd burn the scoreboard. That night, I checked every online account I owned. Changed passwords. Froze my credit. I even reviewed security camera footage from the building. There was nothing yet. But I didn't like the way the air felt. The silence wasn't peace anymore. It was potential. And then came the email. From an address I didn't recognize. Subject line. Just thought you should see this, smiley face. Attached, a screenshot. One of my texts, taken out of context, twisted. A message to a friend that looked vaguely inappropriate, if you didn't know the full thread. There was no message in the body. Just the image. It was the beginning of something. Daphne had found a new tactic. She couldn't hurt me with jokes anymore. So she was going to try something else. Character assassination. And the worst part? She had nothing to lose. The days that followed felt like walking through fog. Everything looked familiar, but nothing felt safe. I received 2 more anonymous emails, both laced with twisted versions of my own words, some old photos from Facebook stitched into creepy collages, and one email that simply read, "You looked better when you were clueless." But I didn't engage. I didn't reply. I didn't rant. I didn't even block the sender. Because responding would mean she still had power. And Daphne only thrived when she had an audience. So I took a different route. I documented everything. Every email, every text, every suspicious attempt to log into my online accounts. I filed a digital harassment report. Quietly. Without fanfare. Then I did something that finally broke the pattern. I told the truth. Publicly, but respectfully. I posted a message on my private Facebook. Not dramatic. Just calm and honest. Some of you have heard rumors or received strange messages. Out of respect for my own peace, I won't be going into detail. But please know that I've been the target of an effort to smear my name by someone I once trusted. If you know me, you know my heart. I'm not here to fight. I'm just done hiding. Thank you to the people who've quietly stood by me. I didn't name her. I didn't need to. The people who mattered already knew. And within minutes, the responses poured in. Friends, former coworkers, even quiet acquaintances I hadn't spoken to in years reached out. Not with pity, but with support. And just like that, she lost the narrative. 2 days later, Margaret called again. She sounded different this time. Tired, but clearer. She's moving, she said. To another state. Said she needs a reset. I don't think you'll be hearing from her again. I hope she finds whatever she's looking for, I replied, and I meant it. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't carrying her anymore. Not in my heart. Not in my home. Not in my head. The silence in my apartment? It was real now. Peaceful. I opened the windows, let in the breeze. Bought a plant I knew I'd probably forget to water, but I liked the way it looked. I even adopted a dog, an awkward mutt named Tiller who's terrified of vacuum cleaners, but loves jazz music. And one afternoon, while walking Tiller past the bookstore where I first met Daphne all those years ago, I realized something that stopped me cold. I wasn't angry anymore. Not at her. Not at myself. Not at how long it took me to walk away. I was free. So, if you've made it this far, thank you. And now, I want to ask you, the listener, have you ever been in a situation where someone laughed at you for so long they forgot you had the power to stand? What was your turning point? Share it in the comments. We read every single one. You never know who might find strength in your story. And if this is your first time here, welcome to Reddit Confessions, where the quiet ones finally get to speak. Thanks for listening. Stay kind and stay strong.